Be blessed by the divine. The story of my life by Sri Vethathiri Maharishi, Chapter 27, a summing up. I commenced writing this brief account of my life in compliance with the wishes of my friends and my devoted disciples. I have traced a few significant events and have elucidated a few incidents. I must record a thrilling experience I had when I was about 42 years of age. I was then in Guduvanjeri, and it was my habit there to sleep on the front veranda of my house. At about 12:30 on a certain full moon night, I found myself wide awake. A part of the raised veranda was drenched in bright moonlight, and at a distance of about 2 feet from me, I saw the form of Saint Ramalinga Swami of Vadalur. Seated, draped from head to toe in pure white as was his wont. Overcome by the inspiring vision of that supreme saint and social reformer of the century gone by, I got up to pay obeisance to him. Looking at me with deep compassion, the saint told me in a soft and clear tone, "I would be residing with you for a decade, my boy, but do not tell this to anyone now." Uttering these words, the saint disappeared, leaving me in extreme wonderment. At once I sat to meditate, but only the form of Ramalinga Swami filled my mind. For 10 years from then onwards, all the verses I wrote were saturated with philosophical tenets. It is my impression that, using my humble self as a medium, Ramalinga Swami completed the work left unfinished by him. On many an occasion he has been my guide, and I treasure the events in my memory. Man alone has been endowed with the faculty of reasoning. To him alone is it given to plan his life properly in full consciousness of the great truth underlying creation. In the process of evolution, when senses develop in full, we have living organisms. But these organisms are limited in their functioning as they are endowed with only 5 senses. Man alone has the distinction of being endowed with the precious 6th sense. The 6th sense enables him to regulate his life, imparting to it orderliness, system, and the clarity born of supreme wisdom. He comprehends that there is a certain power that forms the source of life of all kinds. He knows that this power could be spoken of as the ultimate reality. He is sure that the life force functions different in different forms of life, according to the physical characteristics of each of them. He understands that man stands apart from the rest of creation because, in addition to the sensory experiences common to all, he alone can reason out things and relate cause with effect and arrive at conclusions. He is convinced that he behaves in a variety of ways when bound by ignorance, till enlightenment sets him free. Man grasps the truth that when he studies and examines himself on these lines, he stands on the very pinnacle of knowledge, developing a feeling of universal brotherhood and modifying his own wants and needs with due regard and consideration for the wants, needs, and opinions of others. The story of my life describes how I reacted to my environment, changing from time to time as a member of the community of man. All other creatures lead lives according to instinct, but man, in addition to instinct, has a brain that functions and serves him well. His is a body-mind cooperation, and his history differs, therefore, from that of other living beings. Nature provides amply from out of its abundance to meet the needs and aspirations of the human races. Nature also furnishes the requisite guidance towards the good and the true by creating men of knowledge and leadership. The aspiration and the need, deep down in the hearts of masses, provides the justification for the arrival of a reformer in the midst, and he gets shaped accordingly. From this point of view, therefore, I attribute my origin and my training also to the same force, the need to fill the void of which innumerable people become suddenly conscious at a particular moment of history. A large majority of people who lead the life of ordinary householders still have a learning towards self-realization. I give such people a simple training suitable to them. All people are shaped by society. They serve that society. They merge themselves at the end in that same society. The exceptions are those few who recognize the interdependence of the individual and the society and offer themselves to the uplift of their society as a whole. The greater the number of such dedicated men, the greater would be the happiness and peace that reign in the world. Right from that moment, this truth dawned upon me. I have oriented my actions to the good of humanity as a whole. This way of life I have held before my friends and disciples as a desirable goal or ideal to strive for. Knowledge of self and a world government, these two alone are capable of bringing an enduring peace to all our troubled planet. To achieve this world peace is the aim of our World Community Service Center. Till this moment, I have devoted my energies to the service of my home and humanity. From now on, I have decided to give all my attention to the service of humanity only. From 1960 onwards, I began to withdraw from my business activities more and more and engage myself wholly in spiritual service. This message of light spread from the village of Guduvancheri and found its way by slow degrees into the rest of Tamil Nadu. At the same time, certain conferences in which I took part made it possible for the good work to range further afield too. And the simplified course of Kundalini Yoga, which I made popular, won regard and recognition in places like Bombay, Cuttack, Bhubaneswar, Delhi, and Nagpur. A scientific yoga conference was convened in New Delhi from the 19th to the 23rd December 1970. The convener was an Englishman of the name of Christopher of Great Britain. Delegates as well as the practitioners of yoga from all parts of the world attended. I also received an invitation and I accepted it. At 2:30 in the afternoon on the 21st of December 1970, I addressed the conference for 40 minutes. My theme was Kundalini Yoga. About 25 persons in all came to meet me after my address was over and got themselves initiated by me in the practice of yoga. I had the opportunity of meeting practitioners of yoga from several parts of the world and discussing things with them. In short, all those who had been working in close cooperation with me, as well as myself, had every reason to be gratified with the measure of success that came our way then. At the request of friends in Delhi and Nagpur, the Anboli Journal became a bilingual publication from January 1971. It began to carry articles in English also for their benefit. On March 7, 1971 came our daughter Jnanambike's betrothal. I had often pleaded for simplification of the wedding procedures in the columns of Anboli. I had opposed the giving and taking of dowries and advocated elimination of needless superfluities in the wedding rites. I had clearly indicated how the function could be fully reformed in keeping with the trend of modern times. I decided that our own daughter's wedding should set the example and be a model for such other weddings thereafter. For such reforms, I preached. I spoke to the bridegroom's father about my ideas of wedding reform and won his consent. The conditions were that the bride and the bridegroom wholeheartedly agree to the alliance, that the parents of both should give their consent, and that society at large should approve and bear witness. My study of the institution of marriage had led me to this conclusion, and the wedding scheme I drew up rested on this triple basis. The members of the World Community Service Center themselves formed a committee of hosts and arranged for the celebration of the wedding of Jnanambike and Anandan. This they did in strict conformity with my ideas of reformation. The bride and bridegroom took their seats. A deed was already drawn up in which they gave expression to their willingness, without reserve, to take each other as their partner in life. They now read out the document in the presence of the assembled guests and signed it. The registrar of marriages was present there at that hour by arrangement. He had this wedding entered in his records according to form. The bridegroom then adorned the bride with the auspicious jewel and exchanged garlands with her. The parents of the couple, as well as the chief guests there, attested the wedding deed. Then came speeches of felicitation. This way the wedding was now finalized. It became valid and binding. Several fellow members of our center who witnessed this procedure have begun to adopt these simplified rites in weddings in their own families. It is my wish that this reformed method of celebration should become the rule as days go by. I am sure it will. I used to quote from Tirukkural occasionally during my discourses in Tamil. These aphorisms are charged with meaning, and friends who listened to my elucidation wanted me to write a documentary, bringing out the more subtle truths they contain. My friends' wishes were fulfilled. My interpretation of Tirukkural found a place in Anbali, the journal of our center, for one whole year and won the admiration and appreciation of readers. This task, which I took upon myself with pleasure, gave me equal satisfaction and delight. My 60th birthday was celebrated by my friends as a happy event of the 15th August 1971. A purse of rupees 5,000 was presented to me on behalf of my friends that day, and I passed it on as a gift to the World Community Service Center. This amount was helpful to bring out some of the books I had written. The year 1972 proved an exhilarating turning point in the cause I was engaged in of serving humanity in the spiritual sphere. The Divine Life Society held a conference at Cuttack, capital of Orissa, on the 19th, 20th and 21st of February of that year. I went there on invitation and addressed the conference, taking as my theme Kundalini Yoga as a spiritual discipline. As a result of this, branches of our service center were formed at both Cuttack and Bhubaneswar. I am aging rapidly. The many ordeals I have been through and my own incessant and excessive work have together worn me thin. The days that are still left are bound to be few, nor is there any desire in me to go on living indefinitely for long. I wish, if occasion serves, to get in touch with the elite of the West, to put before them my scheme for universal peace, and get them to see to it that the good work goes on even more effectively after my time. May there be peace on earth and prosperity for all. The story of my life by Sri Vethathiri Maharishi will continue. Visit simplifiedkundaliniyoga.com and sign up to attend our Kundalini Awakening workshop. Be blessed by the Divine.